The massive doors of the Galactic Defense Council chambers slid open with a soft hiss. Commander Hyunwoo Park stepped inside, his black military boots clicking against the polished metal floor. Behind him walked Ambassador Nari Kim, her diplomatic, robes rustling as she moved. She carried a datapad filled with Earth's military proposals. The chamber was huge. It stretched up so high that the ceiling disappeared into shadows. Around the circular room sat representatives from dozens of alien species. Some looked like giant insects with clicking mandibles. Others resembled walking crystals that sparkled under the bright lights. A few were blob-like creatures that changed colors as they spoke. Park had been in many meetings before, but this one felt different. The fate of the entire galaxy hung in the balance. The Void Swarm was coming, and every world in their path had been consumed. Entire star systems had gone dark. Billions of lives had been lost. "The human delegation may present their proposal," announced High Chancellor Mordak. He was a towering figure with 4 arms and skin like polished stone. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. Nari stepped forward and activated her holographic display. Images of Earth's warships appeared in the air above the center of the room. The ships looked different from the sleek alien vessels. They were boxier, more practical. But what drew attention were the long barrels extending from their fronts. "Honored delegates," Nari began. "Humanity offers our military fleet to join the fight against the Void Swarm. Our ships are equipped with electromagnetic railgun technology that can fire projectiles at incredible speeds." A sound like breaking glass filled the room. It came from Ambassador Velthon, a crystalline being from the Thaktar Empire. The translation device rendered it as laughter. "Projectiles?" Velthon's voice chimed like wind through crystal caves. "You mean to fight the swarm with chunks of metal?" More sounds filled the chamber. The insect-like Manthari clicked their mandibles in what Park knew was amusement. The blob creatures rippled with colors that their translators said meant ridiculous. War Chief Kextal of the Zephyrians stood up. His skin glowed with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed with each word. "We have plasma cannons that can melt through the hull of a battleship in seconds. Our quantum disruptors can tear apart the very atoms of our enemies. And humans bring, what did they call them? Railguns." Park felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his face calm. He had expected this reaction. Earth's technology looked primitive compared to the weapons these aliens possessed, but he knew something they didn't. "If I may explain," said engineering specialist Bo-Young Lee, stepping up beside Nari. She was young but brilliant, one of Earth's top weapons engineers. "These aren't just simple projectiles. Our railguns use electromagnetic fields to accelerate tungsten rods to velocities approaching 12% of light speed." She tapped her datapad, and new numbers appeared in the hologram. "The kinetic energy of impact equals the force of nuclear weapons, but without the radiation or energy signature." The chamber erupted in more alien laughter. A delegate from the Hegemony Corps, a species that looked like walking suits of armor, spoke up. "Child, we have antimatter weapons. We can create small black holes as weapons. Why would we want to throw rocks at our enemies?" "Very fast rocks," Bo-Young corrected quietly. "Still rocks," replied the Hegemony delegate. High Chancellor Mordak raised one of his 4 hands for silence. "We appreciate Terra's enthusiasm to join our cause. However, perhaps your species would be more useful in support roles. Supply runs, medical assistance, refugee transport. Leave the actual fighting to those with proper weapons." Park stepped forward. "Chancellor, with respect, our simulations show that kinetic weapons could be highly effective against—" "Commander," Mordak interrupted, "your simulations are based on fighting other humans. The Void Swarm is unlike anything your species has encountered. They consume energy. They adapt to every weapon type we use against them. What you need is not better rocks to throw, but weapons that can match their ability to evolve." Around the chamber, alien heads nodded in agreement. The Thaktar delegate Velthon spoke again. "The swarm entities grow stronger when hit with energy weapons. They learn from each attack. Our scientists believe they actually feed on certain types of energy. That's why our plasma weapons become less effective over time. Which is why we developed quantum disruptors," added a new voice. This came from Dr. Zalthan, a scientist from the Cerebral Collective. His species looked like floating brains in transparent containers. These weapons attack the quantum structure of matter itself. Very advanced technology. And yet, Park said carefully, the swarm continues to advance. The chamber fell silent for a moment. It was true. Despite all their advanced weapons, the Allied forces had been losing ground for months. The Void Swarm seemed unstoppable. That is why we need even more advanced weapons, Dr. Zhao then continued. Not less advanced ones. Your kinetic projectiles are a step backward, not forward. Captain Jin Ho Song, who had been standing quietly behind Park, whispered, Sir, maybe they have a point. Look at what they've got compared to us. Park turned, slightly. Captain, sometimes the oldest solutions are the most elegant ones. The session continued for another hour. The aliens discussed their plans to develop new energy weapons, more powerful plasma cannons, and even more exotic quantum technologies. They talked about harnessing the power of stars and bending the laws of physics. Through it all, the humans sat quietly and listened. Nari took notes on her datapad. Bo Young studied the technical specifications the aliens shared. Park just watched and remembered everything. Finally, High Chancellor Mordak announced the decision. The Terran fleet will be assigned to Logistics Division 7. You will handle supply runs to forward bases and evacuate civilians from threatened worlds. This is an important job that suits your current capabilities. The aliens began to file out of the chamber, still discussing their advanced weapons and complex battle plans. As they left, Park heard fragments of conversation. Railguns, one alien said to another. Can you believe it? At least they're eager to help, came the reply, even if their technology is centuries behind ours. Soon, only the human delegation remained in the vast chamber. Nari closed her datapad with a snap. Well, that went about as expected. They don't understand, Bo Young said quietly. They think bigger and more complex always means better. Jin Ho shook his head. Maybe they're right, sir. Maybe we are out of our league here. Park stood up and straightened his uniform. Captain, there's something these aliens don't understand about humans. We've been fighting and surviving for thousands of years with simple tools. We learned to hunt mammoth with sharp sticks. We conquered our world with bronze and iron and steel. He walked to the chamber's huge window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Void Swarm was heading toward another innocent world. They think advanced means better, Park continued, but sometimes the simplest solution is the right one. Sometimes you don't need to outsmart your enemy. You just need to hit them hard enough that it doesn't matter how smart they are. Nari joined him at the window. So what do we do now? Park smiled grimly. We get ready, and when the time comes, we show them what humans do best. Which is, we break things, very efficiently. 3 months had passed since the meeting at the Galactic Defense Council. The war was not going well. Medical officer Sojin Choi wiped sweat from her forehead as she worked on another wounded alien soldier. The field hospital on Kepler Station was always busy now. Too busy. The soldier on her table was a Thaktar warrior named Kelvon. His crystalline body was cracked in dozens of places. Dark fluid leaked from the breaks. His species normally glowed with inner light, but this one was dim and fading. What happened out there? Sojin asked as she sealed another crack with biogel. Kelvon's voice was weak. We hit them with everything. Plasma cannons, quantum disruptors, antimatter missiles. For a moment we thought we were winning. And then, they started to glow. The swarm creatures absorbed our weapons fire and grew bigger, stronger, faster. His light flickered. They fed on our attacks. Sojin had heard this story too many times. Every wounded soldier told the same tale. The aliens' advanced weapons were useless, worse than useless. They were making the enemy stronger. She moved to the next bed. A Zephyrian commander named Talvor lay there. He was missing 2 of his 6 arms. His skin, which should have been bright with bioluminescent patterns, was dull gray. Doctor, he whispered, how many more systems have fallen? Sojin checked her datapad. The news was bad. 7 in the last week. The swarm is moving faster now. Talvor closed his large eyes. Every battle makes them stronger. Every weapon we use teaches them how to defend against it. We're not fighting them. We're training them. In the command center 3 decks up, General Wu Jin Kang studied the tactical displays with growing concern. Red dots marked swarm positions. They were everywhere now. Green dots showed allied fleets. There weren't many left. "Status report," he called out. Communications Officer Tae-Ho Yoon looked up from his console. "The 4th Fleet engaged the swarm at Proxima 7. They report initial success with the new quantum torpedoes." And then? The swarm adapted within 2 hours. The torpedoes now feed the creatures instead of damaging them. General Kang rubbed his temples. Every new weapon the aliens developed worked for a short time. Then the swarm learned to absorb it, use it, grow from it. It was like fighting an enemy that became stronger with every punch you threw. An alarm sounded. Emergency broadcasts flooded the communication channels. The swarm had chosen its next target, Haven Prime. 3 billion civilians lived on that world. War Marshal Gektar of the Hegemony appeared on the main screen. His armor was scarred from recent battles. "All available fleets converge on Haven Prime. We make our stand here." "What's our status?" General Kang asked. Lieutenant Minho Jang checked his display. "All Terran vessels are in position, sir. We're running supply lines and evacuation routes as ordered." The general nodded. For 3 months, the human fleet had been relegated to support duties. They carried medical supplies, evacuated refugees, and transported food and ammunition. It was important work, but it wasn't fighting. In space near Haven Prime, the combined alien fleet prepared for battle. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species formed battle lines, their weapons charged with exotic energies. Plasma conduits glowed, quantum field generators hummed with power. Commander Hyun-Woo Park stood on the bridge of the TDF Seoul, watching the alien formations through the main viewer. His ship was positioned far behind the battle lines, ready to evacuate civilians if the defense failed. "Sir," called Navigation Officer Dae-Yun Park, "the alien fleet is moving to engage. They're requesting all non-combat vessels maintain safe distance." Park nodded. "Understood. All Terran ships maintain current positions." Captain Ye-Rim Han's voice came over the communication system from the TDF Incheon. "Sir, it feels wrong just watching while they fight." "Our time will come, Captain," Park replied quietly. The battle began with a spectacular light show. Thousands of plasma bolts streaked across space like falling stars. Quantum torpedoes bent reality around their targets. Antimatter warheads exploded with the force of small suns. For 20 minutes, it looked like the aliens might win. The swarm entities reeled under the massive firepower. Several of the largest creatures were torn apart by concentrated fire. Then the change began. The swarm creatures started to pulse with absorbed energy. The plasma bolts that hit them made them glow brighter. The quantum weapons that struck them made them grow larger. The antimatter explosions fed them power beyond imagination. "No, no, no," whispered Dr. Zal then from his flagship. "This is impossible. They can't adapt this quickly." But they could, and they did. The swarm entities, now glowing with stolen energy, began to move faster. They flowed around the alien battle lines like living lightning. Ships that had been firing moments before were suddenly covered in writhing black forms. "All ships fall back!" War Marshal Gektar's voice cracked with desperation. "Emergency retreat! They're too strong!" The alien fleet began to withdraw, but it was too late for many. Ship after ship went dark as the swarm consumed them. The creatures grew larger with each vessel they absorbed. In the medical bay of the Seoul, Sojin received the first casualties. Alien survivors were beamed aboard from destroyed ships. They all told the same story. "They fed on our weapons," gasped a Manthari pilot. "Every shot made them bigger. We were feeding them." Engineering specialist Bo Young Lee monitored the battle from her station. She watched the energy readings spike each time an alien weapon fired. She saw how the swarm entities absorbed and converted that energy. "It's like throwing gasoline on a fire," she murmured. "What was that?" asked Lieutenant Minho Jang. "The alien weapons. They're all energy-based. Plasma, quantum fields, antimatter. The swarm has evolved to eat energy. Every shot just makes them stronger." Captain Jinho Song overheard the conversation. "Then how do we fight something that feeds on our weapons?" Bo Young was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. "We don't feed them. We hit them with something they can't eat." "Like what?" "Like a very fast rock." On the bridge, Commander Park watched the alien retreat with calm eyes. The combined fleet was in full withdrawal now. Ships limped away with battle damage, while the swarm entities grew ever larger behind them. Sir, called Communications Officer Tae-ho Yoon, we're receiving orders to begin civilian evacuation. All Terran vessels are to proceed to Haven Prime immediately. Belay that order, Park said quietly. Sir? I said belay that order. Park turned to his weapons officer. Mr. Bay, status on our railgun systems. Weapons Officer Sung-Ho Bay looked confused. All systems operational, sir, but we're supposed to be evacuating civilians. Mr. Bay, how long to charge our main railgun to full power? 15 minutes, sir, but Commander, our orders are... I know what our orders are. Park opened a channel to all Terran ships. All vessels, this is Seoul Actual. Prepare for combat operations. Captain Yerim Han's voice came back immediately. Sir, we're not authorized for combat. We're logistics only. Captain, sometimes logistics means delivering the right package to the right place at the right time. Park smiled grimly. And I think it's time we made a special delivery. In the command center, General Woo Jin Kang received the reports from the retreating alien fleet. The news was catastrophic. Over half the ships were destroyed or severely damaged. The swarm was stronger than ever. General, his aide reported, the Terran fleet is requesting permission to engage. Negative. Tell them to stick to evacuation duties. This is no time for heroes. But on the TDF Seoul, Commander Park was already giving new orders. All ships, load tungsten penetrators. Target the Swarm Queen. Maximum range engagement. Sir, Bo Young called from her station, the alien command is ordering us to withdraw. Park looked at the tactical display. The massive Swarm Queen floated in the center of the enemy formation like a dark moon. It pulsed with absorbed energy from the alien weapons. Sometimes, he said quietly, you have to disobey orders to follow orders. Sir, our real order is to protect innocent lives, and that's exactly what we're going to do. The bridge of the TDF Seoul was quiet, except for the steady hum of charging systems. Commander Hyun-woo Park stood behind the tactical display, watching the void swarm descend toward Haven Prime like a living shadow. The alien fleet was retreating. On all sides, their ships damaged, and their crews demoralized. Sir, called Navigation Officer Dae-Yoon Park, the alien command is ordering all support vessels to begin immediate evacuation procedures. Park didn't take his eyes off the display. Acknowledge the order. Tell them we're moving to evacuation positions. But, sir, we're not moving to evacuation positions. No, we're not. Park turned to his weapons officer. Mr. Bay, status on the railgun charge? Weapons Officer Seung-Ho Bay checked his console. 70% in climbing, sir. The magnetic coils are heating up, but they're holding steady. Good. All ships, prepare for coordinated fire. The communication channels filled with voices from the other Terran vessels. Captain Yerim Han from the TDF Incheon was the first to respond. Sir, with respect, what are we doing? We've been ordered to evacuate civilians, not engage in combat. Park activated the fleet-wide channel. All captains, listen carefully. The alien fleets have been fighting this enemy for months. Their energy weapons only make the swarm stronger, but we have something different. Railguns, said Captain So-Min Lee from the TDF Busan. You want to fight them with kinetic weapons. I want to fight them with physics, Park corrected. Energy can be absorbed, converted, used, but kinetic force is different. You can't absorb momentum. You can't convert mass times velocity into something useful. When a 10-ton tungsten rod moving at 12% of light speed hits you, the laws of physics do the rest. In the command center of Haven Prime, General Woo Jin Kang was coordinating the evacuation efforts when his aide brought him an urgent message. Sir, the Terran fleet is not moving to evacuation positions. They're forming an attack formation. What? General Kang looked at the tactical display. The human ships were indeed moving into a battle line, but they were staying far from the main battle. Get me Commander Park. Park's face appeared on the screen. His expression was calm, but determined. General. Commander, what are you doing? Your orders are to evacuate civilians. Sir, with respect, our orders are to protect innocent lives. Sometimes the best way to protect people is to stop the thing that's trying to kill them. Park, you have 27 ships against billions of swarm entities. This is suicide. Maybe, but it's our choice to make. The communication cut out. General Kang stared at the screen for a moment, then turned to his staff. Continue evacuation procedures and monitor the Terran attack. If they somehow succeed, we need to be ready to support them. On the TDF Seoul, engineering specialist Bo Young Lee was making final calculations. She had been working on this problem for months, ever since the first reports of swarm behavior came in. "Commander," she called out, "I'm reading massive energy. Build up from the Swarm Queen. She's absorbed power from the entire alien fleet. Her energy signature is off the charts." "Which means she's a bigger target," Park replied. "Mr. Bay, target analysis." "The Queen is 17 million kilometers away and closing. She's approximately the size of a small moon, sir. Mass estimates put her at several billion tons." Lieutenant Minho Jang looked up from his station. "Sir, at that range, even our railguns will take time to reach the target. She'll see them coming." "Will she?" Park asked. "Bo Young, what do you think?" Bo Young studied her readings. "The swarm entities react to energy signatures. Plasma weapons, quantum fields, antimatter reactions. They can sense those coming and prepare to absorb them. But a kinetic projectile doesn't have an energy signature. It's just matter moving through space." "Like a bullet," said Captain Jin Ho Song. "Exactly like a bullet. A very, very fast bullet." The swarm was getting closer to Haven Prime. On the planet's surface, 3 billion people were trying to evacuate, but there wasn't enough time. The alien transport ships could only carry so many at once. War Marshal Gektar of the Hegemony sent a final message to all ships. "This is War Marshal Gektar. All vessels fall back to minimum safe distance. We will attempt one final bombardment with concentrated fire." "Negative," came Park's voice over the open channel. "All alien vessels, maintain distance. We're going in. Commander Park, your ships are not equipped for this kind of battle. Please reconsider." "War Marshal, our ships are equipped for exactly this kind of battle. We just didn't know it until now." The 27 human ships moved into perfect formation. They were not sleek like alien vessels. They looked more like flying metal boxes with long barrels sticking out the front. But those barrels were charged and ready. On the bridge of the TDF Incheon, Captain Ye Rim Han watched her targeting computer lock onto the Swarm Queen. The massive creature filled the screen, a writhing mass of darkness that pulsed with stolen energy. "All ships report ready," she announced over the fleet channel. "Confirmed," came the responses from 26 other captains. Park opened the communication to all ships. "This is Seoul Actual. We are 17 million kilometers from target. The Swarm Queen is focused on absorbing energy weapons from the retreating alien fleet. She doesn't know we're here." He paused, looking around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were scared but determined. They knew this might be their only chance. All ships load tungsten penetrators, full power to magnetic accelerators. Across the human fleet, massive railguns hummed with power. The magnetic coils that would accelerate the tungsten rods were glowing hot. Engineering teams monitored power levels and cooling systems. "Sir," called Chief Engineer Dong Hyun Kim from the Seoul's engine room, "we're at maximum safe power. Any more, and we risk burning out the coils." "Acknowledged. Mr. Bay, firing solution?" "Locked and confirmed, sir. All ships report ready to fire." In the alien command center, Dr. Zhao then was monitoring all communications. His floating brain pulsed with confusion as he listened to the human preparations. "They're really going to do it," he said to no one in particular. "They're going to attack with kinetic weapons." Ambassador Velthon's crystalline form clicked, with what might have been worry. "Those projectiles will take several minutes to reach the target at that range. The Queen will have plenty of time to react." "If she sees them coming," Dr. Zhao then replied. "But kinetic projectiles don't have energy signatures. They're just matter in motion." "You think this might actually work?" "I think we're about to find out." On the TDF Seoul, Park looked around his bridge one more time. His crew was ready. The other ships were ready. This was the moment everything depended on. "All ships," he said quietly. "Remember your training. Remember why we're here. Remember that sometimes the simplest solution is the right one." He nodded to his weapons officer. "Mr. Bay, you may fire when ready." Sung Ho Bay's hand hovered over the firing control. Around the fleet, 26 other weapons officers waited for his signal. The fate of 3 billion people hung in the balance. "All ships," Bay announced, "firing in 3, 2, 1, fire." 27 railguns discharged simultaneously. The magnetic coils released their stored energy in a fraction of a second, accelerating 10-ton tungsten rods to impossible speeds. The ships shuddered under the recoil, but their targeting systems held steady. 27 projectiles, each moving at 12% of the speed of light, streaked across the void toward the Swarm Queen. They carried no energy signature, gave off no heat, and made no sound in the vacuum of space. They were just very fast pieces of metal following the laws of physics. "Time to target," called Da-Un Park. 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Park nodded. "Now we wait, and we see if the old ways still work." 4 minutes felt like forever. On the bridge of the TDF Seoul, Commander Hyunwoo Park watched the countdown timer tick away the seconds. 27 tungsten rods were flying through space at speeds that made light seem slow. But space was vast, and even at 12% of light speed, it took time to cross 17 million kilometers. 3 minutes to impact, Navigation Officer Da-Un Park announced. The Swarm Queen floated in the darkness ahead, still focused on the retreating alien fleet. She was massive beyond imagination, a writhing ball of living shadow the size of a small moon. Energy crackled across her surface as she absorbed the last few plasma bolts from the alien ships. Weapons Officer Sung-Ho Bae monitored his sensors. "Sir, the Queen is still showing no reaction to our projectiles. Her defensive systems haven't activated." "Because there's nothing to react to," said engineering specialist Bo Young Lee. "No energy signature, no heat signature, no electromagnetic field. Just matter moving through space." Captain Jin Ho Song stood beside Park, watching the tactical display. "Sir, what if this doesn't work? What if kinetic weapons aren't enough?" Park's voice was steady. "Then we'll have tried something different. And maybe that will give the next people an idea." In the Alien Command Center, General Woo Jin Kang was coordinating the retreat while watching the human attack unfold. War Marshal Gektar appeared on his screen, the hegemony commander's armor scorched from battle. "General," Gektar said, "my fleet has taken heavy casualties. We're falling back to regroup. What's the status on civilian evacuation?" 20% complete, Kang replied. "At this rate, we'll lose most of the population before we can get them off-world." "And the human attack?" Kang looked at the tactical display. 2 minutes to impact. I have to admit, I'm curious to see what happens." Dr. Zhao then floated nearby, his brain pulsing with calculations. "The kinetic energy of those projectiles is enormous. If they actually hit the Queen, the impact will be equivalent to multiple nuclear weapons." "If they hit," Gektar emphasized, "the Queen is not defenseless. She has destroyed entire fleets." "Yes, but those fleets attacked with energy weapons. She could absorb them, turn their power against them. These are just chunks of metal." On the TDF Incheon, Captain Yerim Han watched her targeting computer track the invisible projectiles. She couldn't see them, but the computer knew exactly where they were. 1 minute to impact, she announced over the fleet channel. Around the human formation, alien ships watched from a safe distance. Ambassador Velthon's crystalline form flickered, with nervous energy on his bridge. "This is either brilliant or completely insane." His weapons officer, a younger Thaktar named Nelvon, studied the readings. "Ambassador, if this works, it will change everything. All our weapons research, all our advanced technology, will be proven wrong by a species that learned to throw rocks." The countdown continued. 30 seconds. 20. 10. The Swarm Queen suddenly shuddered. Her massive form rippled like water. For a moment, it seemed she might be reacting to some threat. Then she returned to her steady approach toward Haven Prime. 5 seconds, called Da-Un Park. On every human ship, the crew held their breath. Impact! The first tungsten rod struck the Swarm Queen's central mass with the force of a small nuclear weapon. But there was no explosion, no flash of light, no energy release, just pure kinetic force slamming into living tissue at relativistic speed. Thigh. Rod punched through the Queen's outer membrane like it was paper. Dark fluid sprayed into space as the projectile carved a tunnel deep into the creature's body. The Queen's entire form convulsed. "Direct hit!" shouted Sung-Ho Bae. "First projectile has penetrated the target." But that was only the beginning. The 27 rods had been fired in a precise pattern, timed to arrive within microseconds of each other. As the Queen reeled from the first impact, 6 more rods slammed into her from different angles. The creature's absorption capabilities, evolved to handle energy weapons, were useless against pure kinetic force. She couldn't convert momentum into useful power. She couldn't absorb mass times velocity and turn it into strength. When 200,000-ton projectiles moving at 36,000 kilometers per second hit living tissue, physics took over. "Multiple impacts!" Bo Young called out, watching her sensors spike with each hit. "The Queen's biosignature is fluctuating!" The remaining 20 rods struck in rapid succession, each one carved through the Queen's body like a bullet through water. The massive creature began to convulse violently, her form rippling with shock waves from the impacts. Medical Officer So-Jin Choi, monitoring the battle from the Seoul's medical bay, watched in amazement as her bioscanners registered the Queen's vital signs. "Her neural activity is spiking. She's going into system shock." On the alien command ship, Dr. Zalvin's brain pulsed rapidly as he processed the readings. "Impossible. The Queen's regeneration systems should be compensating for the damage." "But they're not," War Marshal Gektar observed. "She's actually dying." The Swarm Queen's death throes sent shockwaves through the entire swarm. The billions of smaller entities that surrounded her began to thrash wildly. Their perfect coordination, maintained by the Queen's psychic control, dissolved into chaos. Lieutenant Minho Jang monitored the swarm's communications. "Sir, we're picking up massive disruption in their command structure. The individual entities are losing cohesion." Without their Queen's guidance, the swarm entities began attacking each other. Some tried to flee in random directions. Others simply stopped moving entirely, as if their minds had shut down. "It's working," Captain Yerim Han whispered over the communication channel. "They're falling apart." The alien fleets, which had been retreating in defeat just minutes before, suddenly found themselves facing a completely different enemy. The coordinated, unstoppable swarm was now a chaotic mob of confused creatures. War Marshal Gektar was the first to realize the opportunity. "All ships, attack formation. Target the scattered entities while they're disorganized." Plasma cannons. That had been useless against the coordinated swarm, found easy targets among the confused creatures. Without the Queen's direction, the entities couldn't coordinate their absorption abilities. They were just individual predators, and individual predators could be killed. Communication Officer Tai Ho Yoon's console lit up with incoming messages. "Sir, we're receiving surrender requests from multiple swarm clusters. They're asking for terms." Park allowed himself a small smile. "Patch me through to the alien command." General Kang's face appeared on the screen, his expression one of complete shock. "Commander Park, how did you know this would work?" "We didn't, sir. But we knew the energy weapons weren't working. Sometimes you have to try something different." "But how did you think of using kinetic weapons?" Park looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all grinning now, the tension finally breaking. "General, humans have been throwing rocks at things we want to kill for about 2 million years. We've gotten pretty good at it." On Haven Prime, the evacuation centers erupted in celebration as news of the victory spread. 3 billion people, who had been facing certain death, were suddenly safe. Ambassador Velthon's crystalline form chimed with what the translators rendered as amazement. "They did it. The humans actually did it." Nelvon looked at the tactical display, where swarm entities were surrendering or fleeing in all directions. "Ambassador, we've been developing more and more complex weapons for centuries. We assumed that more advanced always meant more effective. And we were wrong," Velthon admitted. "Sometimes the oldest solution is the best solution." In the medical bay of the Soul, Sojin treated the last of the wounded alien soldiers. The Thaktar warrior Kelvon, who had been dying from swarm-inflicted wounds just hours before, was already beginning to heal. "Doctor," he said, his inner light growing brighter, "how did your people know that simple kinetic weapons would work when all our advanced technology failed?" Sojin smiled as she checked his bio readings. "We didn't know, but we knew that everything you tried was making them stronger. So we tried the one thing that was completely different, which was, we hit them with something they couldn't eat. The war wasn't over yet. There were still swarm entities scattered across dozens of star systems, but they were no longer an unstoppable force. They were just individual creatures that could be hunted down and defeated." Commander Park stood on his bridge, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, alien scientists were probably already working to understand how simple kinetic weapons had succeeded where their most advanced technology had failed. "Sir, called Da Yun Park. "We're receiving new orders from Alien Command. They want us to lead the pursuit of the remaining swarm entities." Park nodded. "Acknowledge the orders. Tell them we're ready." Captain Jinho Song joined him at the window. "Sir, do you think they'll stop underestimating us now?" Park smiled. "I think they'll stop underestimating the power of a very fast rock." 6 weeks after the Battle of Haven Prime, the Galactic Defense Council chambers looked very different. The same circular room where aliens had laughed at human railguns now buzzed with urgent discussions about kinetic warfare. Representatives from every major power wanted to understand how humanity's simple weapons had ended a war that their advanced technology couldn't win. Ambassador Nari Kim stood at the center podium, but this time she wasn't in the back corner. She was front and center, with every alien delegate hanging on her words. The holographic displays around her showed technical specifications for railgun systems, impact calculations, and battle footage from Haven Prime. "The basic principle," explained Chief Engineer Haijin Lee, Bo Young's older sister, "is converting electrical energy into kinetic energy through electromagnetic acceleration. We use magnetic fields to push a projectile to extremely high speeds." The Thaktar scientist Nalthon, who had spent weeks studying the battle recordings, projected his own calculations into the air. His crystalline form sparkled with excitement. "The energy transfer at impact is remarkable. A 10-ton tungsten rod at 12% of light speed delivers more destructive force than our most powerful antimatter weapons." "But without any energy." "Signature," added Zephyrian War Chief Kextall. His skin patterns showed deep respect, a far cry from the mockery he had displayed months earlier. The swarm entities couldn't detect the incoming projectiles because there was nothing to detect. "Hi." Chancellor Mordak stood up, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of acknowledgement. "The Council owes humanity an apology. We dismissed your technology as primitive when it was actually elegant." Commander Hyunwoo Park, now wearing the insignia of Admiral, smiled slightly. "No apology needed, Chancellor. You worked with the information you had. Advanced energy weapons should have been more effective than simple kinetic projectiles." "Should have been," agreed Dr. Zal then, his floating brain pulsing with new understanding. "But we made the mistake of assuming that more complex always means more effective. The swarm had evolved specifically to counter energy-based attacks. They had no defense against pure kinetic force." The discussion turned to practical matters. The war against the Void Swarm wasn't completely over. Scattered groups of the creatures still roamed the outer regions of the galaxy. They were no longer coordinated or unstoppable, but they were still dangerous. "We propose a joint research program," announced Ambassador Nari Kim. "Human kinetic weapons technology combined with alien materials science and targeting systems." The response was immediate and enthusiastic. Every species wanted to contribute something to the project. War Marshal Gektar of the Hegemony spoke first. "Our battle armor alloys could make your projectiles more durable. They would maintain structural integrity even at relativistic speeds. Our quantum targeting computers could improve accuracy across interstellar distances," offered the Cerebral Collective representative. "And our bioneural interfaces could allow faster coordination between multiple ships," added the Zephyrian delegate. Within hours, the framework for the largest technological cooperation in galactic history was taking shape. Species that had guarded their secrets for centuries were eager to share knowledge with humanity. 2 months later, Captain Yoon-Soo Kim of the TDF Busan delivered the first batch of hybrid railgun systems to the Hegemony fleet. The weapons looked familiar but were enhanced with alien technology. The targeting systems could lock onto targets across entire star systems. The projectiles were made from exotic matter that could punch through almost anything. The magnetic accelerators used Thaktar crystals to achieve even higher velocities. "Field tests exceeded all expectations," reported engineering specialist Bo Young Lee, now promoted to Chief Technology Officer for the joint program. "The enhanced railguns can achieve 15% of light speed while maintaining perfect accuracy at ranges previously thought impossible." The first real test came when a large group of swarm entities was discovered near the Kepler system. The joint fleet, led by Admiral Park's flagship TDF Seoul, engaged them at maximum range. The battle was over in minutes. The enhanced kinetic weapons struck with surgical precision, eliminating threats before the swarm entities even knew they were under attack. Not a single Allied ship was damaged. Medical Officer So-Jin Choi, now Director of Interspecies Medical Exchange, watched the after-action reports with satisfaction. 0 casualties on our side. The swarm entities were destroyed before they could adapt or coordinate. As news of the victory spread, something unexpected happened. Other enemies of the galactic community, species that had been watching the war with interest, suddenly became much more interested in peace talks. The raider clans, who had been harassing merchant ships for decades, sent diplomatic envoys. The pirate confederacy offered to discuss territorial agreements. Even the mysterious Shadow Fleet, which had never communicated with anyone, transmitted requests for non-aggression pacts. "They're all afraid," observed Intelligence Officer Taeho Yoon, now head of the Joint Intelligence Division. They watched energy-absorbing creatures get destroyed by kinetic weapons, and they're wondering what else humans might be capable of. Admiral Park stood in his ready room aboard the Soul, looking out at the stars. The galaxy felt different now. Safer. The coordination between species that had started with weapons technology was spreading to other areas. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, scientific collaboration. Captain Jinho Song entered the room with a data pad. "Sir, we've received the final casualty reports from the Swarm War." Park took the pad and read through the numbers. Billions of lives lost across dozens of star systems. Entire worlds consumed. It had been the worst crisis in galactic history, and the current status? The last confirmed swarm entity was eliminated 3 days ago near the Vega system. The threat is officially over. Park nodded slowly. It was hard to believe that a war lasting almost a year had ended because someone decided to throw very fast rocks at the enemy. Ambassador Nari Kim appeared on his communication screen. She was calling from the new Galactic Technology Center, a joint research facility where scientists from every species work together. "Admiral," she said, "I wanted to give you an update on the cooperation programs. We've made breakthroughs in faster-than-light communication, improved medical technology, and defensive systems that don't rely on energy fields. All because we shared our railgun designs? All because we proved that different approaches have value. The aliens had been thinking the same way for so long that they couldn't see other solutions. We showed them that sometimes the old ways work better than the new ways." Later that day, Park visited the memorial wall on Haven Prime. 3 billion names were carved into the crystal surface, representing everyone who had died in swarm attacks before the tide turned. It was a reminder of what the cost might have been if the kinetic weapons hadn't worked. Chief Engineer Haijin Lee found him there. "Admiral, the Council has approved funding for the next generation of railgun systems. They want to build weapons capable of 20% of light speed." Park smiled. "That's fast enough to reach the next star system in about 20 years. Actually, sir, they're talking about using them against targets in other galaxies, just in case we meet another threat like the swarm." As they walked back toward the spaceport, Park reflected on how much had changed. Humanity had gone from being dismissed as primitive to being respected as innovative. The galaxy had learned that advanced didn't always mean better. The real victory wasn't just military, it was philosophical. For the first time in galactic history, different species were actively seeking out different approaches to problems instead of assuming their own methods were best. In the transport shuttle back to the Soul, Park's communication officer showed him the latest intelligence reports. "Sir, we're detecting unusual activity in the Andromeda Galaxy. It might be another hostile species." Park looked at the data. Whatever was out there, it was big and potentially dangerous. But this time, the galaxy would be ready with every type of weapon imaginable, from the most advanced energy systems to the simplest kinetic projectiles. "Send a message to all fleet commanders," he ordered. "Standard defensive posture. And make sure every ship has a full load of tungsten rods." His aide looked puzzled. "Sir, shouldn't we focus on the more advanced weapons?" Park smiled as he remembered the laughter in the council chambers all those months ago. "Son, there's an old human saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And very fast rocks are definitely not broken." The galaxy had learned its lesson well. Sometimes the most primitive solution was the most elegant one. Sometimes the oldest human tradition, throwing things at problems until they went away, was exactly what the situation required. As the Soul prepared for its next mission, Admiral Park looked out at the stars one more time. Somewhere out there, new threats might be waiting. But humanity and its allies would be ready with every tool available, from quantum disruptors to electromagnetically accelerated chunks of metal. The universe was a dangerous place, but it was a little less dangerous now that everyone remembered the power of a well-thrown rock.